My grandfather left me 15 acres and a private lake in Michigan, the most beautiful land you've ever seen. But when I arrived to claim my inheritance, I found three massive illegal docks built on my water. A wealthy HOA had turned my private lake into their personal resort. When I demanded they remove the docks, their president, a woman in a pink blazer with ice-cold eyes, got inches from my face and threatened to destroy me. "You have no idea who you're dealing with," she hissed. She had money, lawyers, powerful connections. I had a property deed and a construction background. What she didn't know, those docks were built without permits, fraudulent documents. Environmental crimes, criminal conspiracy. This is how I legally dismantled a corrupt HOA piece by piece and watched their queen lose everything. Stay until the end. The final showdown is absolutely insane. Comment below where you're watching from. I want to see how far lake justice reaches today. The gravel crunched under my truck tires as I pulled up to my grandfather's cabin for the first time as its owner. 15 acres of pure Michigan wilderness. A private lake so clear you could see 20 feet down, pine trees thick enough to block out the world. This was supposed to be my sanctuary. My reset button after a divorce that gutted me and corporate layoffs that left me with nothing but a toolbox and broken dreams. I killed the engine. Silence. The kind that heals. I stepped out, boots hitting earth that felt sacred. Every summer of my childhood lived here. Grandpa Joe teaching me to fish, teaching me to build, teaching me that land means something when you respect it. He'd passed 6 months ago and the grief still sat heavy in my chest. But he left me this, a chance to rebuild my life somewhere honest. I walked toward the lake, coffee in hand, ready to see that water again. Then I stopped cold. 3 massive docks jutted into my lake, professional construction. Treated wood, metal cleats, boats tied to them, a speedboat, 2 pontoons, jet skis covered with tarps. Beach chairs lined the shore, a fire pit. Someone had built a damn resort on my property. My heart hammered. I blinked hard, thinking maybe I was seeing things. But no, those structures were real, solid, expensive. I walked the property line, pulling out the survey map my grandfather's lawyer gave me. The lake was entirely within my boundaries. 100% private. Those docks were trespassing, but who built them? I spotted a man untying one of the boats. Mid-50s, polo shirt, boat shoes, money. "Hey," I called out. He glanced up annoyed. "Yeah, who authorized these docks?" He laughed, actually laughed. "These have been here for years, buddy. Community property always has been. Community property?" My jaw clenched. "This is private land." "My land?" He shrugged, climbing into his boat. "Take it up with the HOA if you've got a problem." He started the engine and roared off, leaving me standing there with rage crawling up my spine. I marched back to the cabin and tore through the boxes until I found the property deed. I spread it across the kitchen table, hands shaking. Every word confirmed it. The lake, the shoreline, the docks sitting on it, all mine legally. Indisputably, someone had been using my grandfather's property for years, building permanent structures, profiting off his kindness or his silence. And now they thought they could do the same to me. I grabbed my laptop and searched Riverside Meadows HOA, a gated community, million-dollar homes, a website bragging about exclusive lake access and resort-style amenities. My lake. They were advertising my lake. I felt something ignite in my chest, not just anger, determination. I'd spent 15 years in construction management. I knew permits, I knew codes, I knew the law. If they wanted to play games with my inheritance, I'd show them exactly what happens when you mess with someone who knows how the system works. I opened my email and drafted a meeting request to the HOA president. Let's see how confident they are when someone finally asks the right questions. The Riverside Meadows HOA clubhouse looked like a country club. Vaulted ceilings, marble floors, crystal chandeliers. Oil paintings of hunting scenes on the walls. This wasn't a neighborhood, it was a kingdom, and I was about to meet the queen. Diane Richardson entered the conference room like she owned the air itself. Blonde hair cut in a perfect bob. Pink blazer, pearl necklace, manicured nails, mid-50s but preserved like a museum piece. Her smile was sharp enough to draw blood. "You must be Michael." She didn't offer her hand. She sat down, smoothing her blazer. "I understand you have concerns." I placed the property deed and survey map on the table between us. "These docks on the lake, they're on my private property. I need to understand who authorized them." Her smile didn't waver. "Your grandfather had a gentleman's agreement with our community. Lake access has been mutually beneficial for years. An agreement to use the lake, maybe, but permanent structures," I tapped the survey map. "That requires my consent, which I didn't give." Diane's smile tightened. "Young man, our community has invested tens of thousands of dollars into those docks. They're essential to our property values and quality of life. Surely we can find an arrangement." "I'm not asking for an arrangement, I'm asking for permits. Show me the county approvals." Silence. Her eyes went cold. "Everything is legal and properly approved," she said slowly. "The permits are on file with the county. Then it should be easy to provide copies. I don't appreciate your tone, her voice dropped venomous. You inherit some dirt and suddenly think you can disrupt an entire community. These are established families, people of standing. You think you have the resources to fight us? My blood pressure spiked. I'm not fighting anyone, I'm asking for basic documentation. Diane leaned forward. Let me be clear. Those docs stay. If you interfere with our property or our access, we will pursue legal action for harassment and property devaluation. Do you understand? I held her gaze. Show me the permits or I'll get them myself. She stood abruptly. This meeting is over. If you continue this harassment, you'll hear from our attorneys. I gathered my documents and walked out, jaw tight, hands shaking. As I reached my truck, I heard her voice through the clubhouse door. She was on the phone, laughing. Some hillbilly who thinks he owns a lake, he'll back down once he sees what lawyers cost. Humiliation burned through me. But underneath it, something colder settled in. She'd refused to show permits. She'd threatened legal action to silence questions. She'd called me a hillbilly for defending my own property. People don't act like that when they're in the right. I drove straight to the county planning office. If those permits existed, I'd see them. If they didn't, then Diane Richardson had just made the biggest mistake of her life. Because I wasn't backing down, I was digging in. And I knew exactly where to dig. The county planning office smelled like old paper and burnt coffee. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. A clerk named Bill, mid-60s with reading glasses on a chain, looked up from his computer. Help you? I need all permits and approvals for dock construction on this property. I slid him the coordinates. Bill typed slowly, squinting at the screen. Minutes passed. My leg bounced under the desk. Huh, he muttered. What? Only thing here is an application from 6 years ago. He clicked through files. Submitted by someone named Robert Caldwell, listed as property owner. My pulse quickened. Robert Caldwell doesn't own that property. Never did. Bill's eyebrows went up. He printed the file and handed it over. I scanned it, heart pounding. The application requested approval for community lake access infrastructure. It included forged ownership documents, fake signatures, and a proposal for 3 permanent docks. At the bottom, DENIED. It was denied. I looked up. Yep, environmental concerns, disturbance to the lake ecosystem, and lack of verified property owner consent. Bill leaned back. Someone named Diane Richardson came in multiple times trying to push it through, got pretty heated when we rejected it. I stared at the denial letter. So no permits were ever issued? Nope. After the denial, nothing. No reapplication, no appeals, just nothing. My hands went numb. Those docks are still there. Bill whistled low. Then they're illegal, built without authorization. I felt adrenaline flood my system. They'd forged documents. Been denied and built them anyway. Diane had looked me in the eye and claimed everything was legal. She'd threatened me with lawsuits, called me a hillbilly, all while sitting on fraud. Can I get certified copies of everything? Sure thing. Bill printed the files, stamped them, sealed them in an envelope. Good luck, son. Sounds like you're gonna need it. I drove home in a daze, hands gripping the wheel. This wasn't just trespassing anymore. This was criminal, forgery, fraud, environmental violations. Diane had gambled that no one would check, that my grandfather was too old to fight, that I'd be too scared or too broke to push back. She underestimated me. I spread the documents across my kitchen table. Every page was a weapon, evidence of lies, evidence of corruption, evidence that Diane Richardson thought she was above the law. I picked up my phone and called a lawyer friend from my construction days. James answered on the second ring. Michael, long time man, I need your help and I need you to witness something. I explained everything, the docs, the denial. The fraud, Diane's threats. James was silent for a long moment. Then, you're sitting on a nuclear bomb. If you play this right, they're finished. I don't want revenge. I want my property back, legally. Then let's do this the right way. Document everything, record every conversation, build an airtight case. When we confront them, we hit them with everything at once. I felt a grim smile cross my face. Let's set up another meeting. You sure? She's going to come at you hard. Let her, this time I'll be ready. I hung up and stared at the lake through the window. The docs sat there like scars, not for long. I drafted the email carefully, professional, polite. No hint of what I'd discovered. Miss Richardson, I'd appreciate the opportunity to discuss the permit approval process for the lake structures. I want to ensure we're all operating within proper legal guidelines. Would you be available to meet this week? Her response came within an hour. Of course, Thursday at 2 p.m., Clubhouse. I'm glad you're willing to be reasonable. Reasonable, she thought I was folding. Thursday came. James met me in the parking lot, briefcase in hand. I wore a collared shirt and jeans. James wore a suit. I had a digital recorder clipped inside my jacket pocket, legal in Michigan with one-party consent. We walked into the clubhouse. Diane was waiting with 2 board members, both men, both retired, both looking at me like I was something stuck to their shoe. Diane's blazer was red this time, blood red. Michael. And you brought a friend? Her tone dripped condescension. "This is James, he's here to observe." "How formal," she gestured to the chairs. "Please sit." We sat. Diane folded her hands on the table. "I'm glad you've reconsidered your position. I knew you'd see reason once you calmed down." I pulled out a notepad, kept my voice calm. "I appreciate you meeting again. I just need clarification on one thing. Can you provide the county-approved permits for the dock construction?" Her smile stayed frozen. "As I said before, everything is properly documented and on file. With the county, of course." "Great. So you have copies I can review," a flicker of irritation. "I don't carry them with me, Michael, but they're available through official channels." I nodded slowly, then slid the certified denial letter across the table. The room went silent. Diane stared at the document, her face drained of color. One of the board members leaned over to read it, his expression shifting to panic. "This is the only document on file with the county," I said quietly. "An application submitted under forged ownership. Denied 6 years ago due to environmental concerns and lack of consent. No permits were ever issued. Those docks were built illegally." Diane's hands trembled. "There must be a mistake, a clerical error." "There's no mistake, I've verified it. The county has no record of approval, which means every day those docks remain, you're violating state and county law." One board member tried to recover. "This is harassment. You can't come in here making accusations." James cut him off, voice sharp. "This isn't harassment. This is notification. You have 30 days to remove the illegal structures. If they're not removed, my client will pursue legal action for criminal trespassing, fraud, forgery, and environmental violations. The state EPA and DNR will also be notified." Diane stood abruptly, chair scraping. Her composure shattered. She pointed a shaking finger at me, voice cracking with rage. "You have no idea who you're dealing with. I have lawyers, I have connections, judges, county officials, people who owe me favors. I will bury you. I will take everything you have. You'll regret ever stepping foot on that property." I stayed seated, voice steady. "Everything you just said is recorded, witness intimidation. I suggest you consult your attorneys before making any more threats." Her face twisted with pure hatred. She grabbed her purse and stormed out, heels clicking violently against marble. The board members sat frozen. One whispered, "We didn't know." James stood. 30 days, clock starts now." We walked out into sunlight. My hands were shaking. James clapped my shoulder. "You just declared war on a very dangerous woman." I looked back at the clubhouse. "Good, let's finish it." The retaliation started within 48 hours. I woke up to an envelope taped to my door, HOA violation notice. My grass was exceeding community standards. I wasn't even in their HOA. I crumpled it and threw it in the trash. The next day, another notice. My truck was an eyesore that diminished neighborhood aesthetics. It was parked on my own property, on my own driveway, day 3. A notice demanding I repaint my cabin to match approved exterior color palettes. I called the HOA office. A secretary informed me that while I wasn't technically a member, my property affected community standards and they had the right to enforce violations. I hung up. This was Diane, petty, desperate, trying to bury me in paperwork. Then it escalated. A county code enforcement officer showed up at my door. Someone had filed a complaint that I was operating an illegal business without permits, my woodworking workshop. The officer inspected everything. My tools, my workspace, my permits, which were all current and legal. He apologized for wasting my time and left, but the damage was done. The harassment was public now, documented. My neighbors, the few who weren't part of the HOA, started asking questions. Gossip spread, the guy fighting the HOA, the troublemaker, then the lawsuit dropped. Diane's attorneys filed a claim for adverse possession. The argument was insane, that because the HOA had used the lake openly and continuously for years, they'd gained legal rights to it. It was desperate, baseless, but it was real, and it required a response. I hired a real attorney. Rebecca Santos, sharp, mid-40s, expensive, she read the lawsuit and shook her head. "This won't hold up, but defending it will cost you $20,000 minimum." My stomach dropped. "I don't have $20,000. Then we fight smart. And we countersue." I drained my savings. $15,000, every dollar I had left after the divorce, my safety net. Gone. I stopped sleeping, stopped eating regularly. I'd wake up at 3 a.m. staring at the ceiling, wondering if I'd made a catastrophic mistake. Maybe I should have just let them keep the docks. Maybe fighting wasn't worth losing everything. Then the letter came, plain envelope. Handwritten address. Inside, a note from a woman named Susan Miller. "Dear Michael, I heard about your fight with Diane Richardson. I'm a former Riverside Meadows resident. 3 years ago, Diane targeted me with false violations, legal threats, and intimidation until I sold my home at a loss just to escape. She's done this before, to multiple people. I have documents, testimony. Proof of her pattern of abuse. If you're willing to fight her, I'll help you. She needs to be stopped." Attached were affidavits, Emails, records of other victims Diane had destroyed, people who'd crossed her and lost their homes, their savings, their peace. I sat at my kitchen table, hands shaking, reading testimony after testimony. Diane wasn't just corrupt, she was a predator, and I was her latest target, but I wasn't her victim. I called Rebecca. I have new evidence. A pattern of harassment and intimidation, multiple victims. Rebecca's voice sharpened. Send me everything, this changes the game completely. I forwarded Susan's documents, then I walked to the lake and stared at those docs. This wasn't about property anymore. It was about power, about stopping someone who'd been hurting people for years with no consequences. Diane thought she could break me, bleed me dry, force me to surrender. She had no idea who she was dealing with. I wasn't just defending my land, I was going to expose everything. And I was going to make sure she never did this to anyone again. The war wasn't over, it was just beginning. Rebecca called me on a Tuesday morning. We need to bring in an environmental expert. If those docks caused ecological damage, the state will get involved. And that's a whole different level of liability for the HOA. How much will that cost? $2,500. But it could end this fight immediately. I didn't have $2,500. I had $400 left in my account. I stared at the number on my phone screen, $400 between me and losing everything. I called my brother, borrowed $1,500, called an old friend from my construction days, borrowed another $1,000, promised I'd pay them back. Dr. Ellen Graves arrived 3 days later, mid-50s hydrologist. 20 years of environmental consulting. She wore waders and carried testing equipment that looked like it belonged in a lab. She spent 2 days on the lake, taking water samples, inspecting the docks, photographing sediment disruption, analyzing the dock construction materials. I watched from the shore, heart pounding. She didn't say much, just worked methodically, filling sample bottles, taking notes. On the third day, she sat me down at my kitchen table, opened her laptop. Michael, your lake is dying. The words hit like a punch. What? She pulled up photos. See this discoloration in the water around the dock pilings? That's chemical leaching. The wood wasn't properly treated for aquatic use, toxins seeping into the ecosystem. She clicked to another image. This sediment disruption, it's destroyed the natural habitat for native fish species. And here, another photo. Petroleum contamination from boat engines, oil, gasoline directly into the water. I felt sick. How bad? Bad enough that fish populations have declined by an estimated 60% in the past 5 years. Amphibian die-off. Disrupted plant growth. This lake was pristine before those docks went in. Now it's a contaminated mess. Can it recover? Yes, but only if those structures are removed immediately and a full remediation process is implemented. We're talking $30,000 to $50,000 in cleanup costs. I stared at the photos, my grandfather's lake, the water I'd learned to swim in, poisoned, because Diane Richardson wanted a private marina. Can you write a report? Already done, and Michael, she looked me in the eye, this isn't just a civil matter anymore. This is criminal environmental negligence. The state EPA and DNR need to be notified immediately. Rebecca filed the report with every relevant agency. The County Environmental Protection Office, the State Department of Natural Resources, the EPA. Within a week, state investigators opened a formal inquiry. Suddenly, the HOA wasn't just facing a property dispute. They were facing massive fines, mandatory cleanup costs, potential criminal charges for the board members who approved construction. The HOA community started to fracture. I got emails from residents I'd never met, apologies. Shock, some claimed they had no idea the docks were illegal. Others were panicking about personal liability. The HOA called an emergency board meeting. I wasn't invited, but I heard about it, shouting, accusations. Diane trying to maintain control, other board members demanding her resignation. Someone leaked me the meeting minutes. Diane had tried to blame a contractor, claimed she'd been misled. But my evidence proved otherwise. Board meeting notes where Diane explicitly ordered construction to proceed despite the permit denial. She'd known, the whole time, and now the proof was public. 2 board members resigned immediately. A third threatened to cooperate with investigators in exchange for immunity. Diane's empire was crumbling, and she knew it. Late that night, I heard a car engine roaring up my driveway. Headlights flooded my cabin. I stepped onto the porch. Diane's Mercedes screeched to a stop. She got out, door slamming, still wearing a pink coat, hair disheveled, eyes wild. She marched toward me, and I knew this was the final confrontation. Everything was about to explode. Diane stormed across my gravel driveway, heels clicking like gunshots, her pink coat whipped behind her, blonde hair wild, makeup smeared. She'd been crying or screaming, maybe both. You're destroying everything, her voice cracked, raw and desperate. Families, property values, livelihoods, for what? Your ego? I stayed on the porch steps, arms crossed, voice calm. For the law, Diane. Something you've ignored for years. She stopped 10 feet away, trembling with rage. The law, you self-righteous, she choked on the words. You're a nobody, a loser who inherited dirt and thinks that makes him important. You have no idea what you're interfering with. I'm interfering with fraud, criminal trespassing, environmental crimes. Those are just words, she screamed it, actually screamed. You think paperwork matters more than real people. We built a community, created value, gave families a place to thrive. On my property without permission, using forged documents. Her face twisted. Your grandfather never cared, he was old, senile, he didn't know what he had. We improved that lake, made it worth something. Heat flooded my veins, don't you dare talk about him. Why? Because the truth hurts. Diane stepped closer, venom in every word. He was a washed-up old man living in a shack. We turned that wasteland into paradise. And now you, some construction worker with delusions of importance, think you can undo years of progress. My jaw clenched, fists tight, but I didn't move, didn't react, just stared at her. She kept going, unraveling. You want to know the real reason you're doing this? Jealousy. You look at our homes, our success, and it kills you. You're bitter, pathetic, clinging to inherited land because you've accomplished nothing on your own. I let her finish. Let her rage burn itself out, then I spoke, quiet, cold. I have everything documented, Diane, every lie you told, every law you broke, every threat you just made recorded. You're not powerful, you're not untouchable. You're just a bully who finally got caught. Her bravado shattered. For 3 seconds she looked small, broken, a woman realizing her entire world was collapsing, then her expression hardened into something darker, pure hatred. She leaned in, voice dropping to a whisper. I know people, real people with real power, judges who owe me favors, county officials I've donated to for years, lawyers who will tear you apart piece by piece. You think you've won. You haven't even seen what losing looks like yet. I will make sure you lose everything, your property, your reputation, your future. You'll regret the day you ever stepped foot on this land. I didn't blink. Get off my property, she stared at me, eyes blazing. Then she turned and stalked back to her Mercedes, slammed the door, tires spun in gravel as she peeled out, engine roaring into the night. I stood there in the dark, heart pounding. Adrenaline flooding my system. My hands shook not from fear, from the effort of staying controlled when every instinct screamed to fight back. I pulled out my phone and called Rebecca. I just got threatened, recorded the whole thing. She's desperate, Rebecca's voice was sharp. Desperate people are dangerous, Michael, watch your back and send me that recording immediately. I hung up, stared at the lake, the dock silhouetted against moonlight. Diane had just made her final mistake, and I was going to make sure everyone knew it. The email came 2 days later. Sender, Margaret Thompson, HOA Board Secretary. Mr. Michael, I need to speak with you privately. It's urgent, please call me. I stared at the message. A trap, another intimidation tactic. I called Rebecca first. Could be legitimate, she said. Could be a board member jumping ship. Meet her in public. Record everything. I called Margaret. Her voice was tired, strained. Thank you for calling. Can we meet? Somewhere neutral. I have information you need to hear. We met at a coffee shop in town, small place, local witnesses everywhere. Margaret arrived looking exhausted. Late 60s, gray hair, wore a simple cardigan, nothing like Diane's designer armor. She sat down heavily. I need you to understand, many of us had no idea those docks were illegal. Diane told the board everything was approved. We trusted her. I said nothing, let her talk. After your last meeting, several board members started asking questions, demanding to see the permits Diane claimed existed. She kept deflecting, making excuses. Then the state investigation hit. Margaret's hands shook around her coffee cup. Property values started dropping. Residents panicked. Some threatened lawsuits against the board for exposing them to liability. And we held an emergency vote. Secret ballot. Diane was removed as president, effective immediately. I felt something shift in my chest. She agreed to that. She didn't have a choice, it was unanimous, 8-0. Margaret looked me in the eye. We want to make this right. The new interim board is prepared to offer a settlement. We'll remove the docks at our expense, pay for environmental remediation, drop all legal action against you. In exchange, you agree not to pursue personal damages against individual homeowners, only against Diane and the board members who knowingly participated. I leaned back, processing. Why should I trust this? Because we're terrified, our families are at risk, our homes. We were lied to by someone we trusted and now we're facing financial ruin because of her decisions. Her voice cracked, please. We just want this nightmare to end. I studied her face, saw genuine fear, genuine regret. I need conditions. Diane is permanently banned from any HOA leadership. The community issues a public apology. All costs are transparently documented. Margaret nodded quickly. Done, all of it, we'll put it in writing. And Diane, how did she react? Margaret's expression darkened. She threatened to sue the board for wrongful removal. Sent a 10-page letter claiming conspiracy and defamation. But no one cares anymore, we're done with her chaos. The next day I received official documentation, Diane's removal, the settlement terms. An apology letter signed by the entire board. Rebecca reviewed everything. This is legitimate. They're capitulating completely. You won, Michael. I stared at the papers. The docks would be gone. The lake would be restored. My property would finally be mine again. Justice, legal, complete, but something nagged at me. Diane had gone silent, too silent. No more lawsuits, no more threats, just nothing. Where is she? I asked Rebecca. I don't know. But if I were you, I'd stay alert. Women like Diane don't accept defeat quietly. That night, I walked the property, checked locks, watched the road. Diane had lost everything, her position, her reputation, her control. Cornered and humiliated, and I had no idea what she'd do next. The barge arrived at dawn. Professional dock removal company, heavy equipment, environmental containment gear. The HOA was paying $75,000 for removal and initial cleanup. Another $50,000 projected for ongoing remediation. I stood on my porch with coffee, watching it all unfold. Cranes lifted dock sections out of the water. Divers inspected pilings, checking for embedded contamination. Environmental technicians collected water samples, documented everything. The foreman, a guy named Rick, waved me over. You're the owner? Yeah, good for you, man. We see this kind of thing more than you'd think. Rich folks building whatever they want, assuming no one will stop them. He gestured at the lake. This'll take 3 days. We'll haul everything off-site, dispose of it properly. Your lake should start recovering within 6 months. 6 months? Nature's resilient. Once the contamination source is gone, ecosystems bounce back fast. 2 years, you won't even know this happened. I watched as the first dock section swung through the air, dripping water. Something in my chest loosened. This was real. It was actually happening. HOA residents gathered on the opposite shore. Some watched silently, a few waved. One elderly man, Vietnam vet named Frank, walked around the lake to shake my hand. Your grandfather would be proud, he said. He was a good man. Deserved better than what Diane did to his land. My throat tightened. Thank you. Takes guts to stand up to people like her. Most folks just fold. I didn't have a choice. Frank squeezed my shoulder. You always have a choice. You made the right one. Over the next 3 days, I watched the transformation. The docks disappeared. The water cleared. Dr. Graves returned to take follow-up samples. She smiled at the results. Contamination levels already dropping. You saved this lake, Michael. By the third evening it was done. The lake looked bare, wounded but healing. I could see the bottom near the shore again, clear, clean, the way I remembered from childhood. I sat on the cabin steps as the sun set, painting the water gold and orange. For the first time in months, I felt peace. Real peace. The kind that comes from knowing you fought for something that mattered and won. My phone buzzed. Rebecca. Michael, we have a problem. My stomach dropped. What? Diane filed criminal harassment charges against you. Claims you appeared at her home late at night, made threatening statements, caused emotional distress. The sheriff's office issued a summons. You need to come in for questioning. The peace evaporated. My hands went cold. That's a lie. I was never at her house. I know, but it's her word against yours unless you have proof. Do you have an alibi, location data, anything? I thought fast. My phone, GPS history. Yeah, I can prove I was home. Get me that data immediately. We're fighting this. But Michael, her voice was grim. She's desperate. This is her last move. She's trying to get a restraining order to force you off your own property while she regroups. I stared at the lake. The docks were gone. The battle should have been over. But Diane wasn't done. She'd lost everything, and now she was willing to destroy me completely just to feel like she'd won something. This wasn't over. It was just entering its final, most dangerous phase. I met Rebecca at her office at 8 a.m. Brought my phone, my laptop, every piece of evidence I had. My hands shook as I unlocked my GPS history. Here, the night Diane claims I harassed her, I was home, didn't leave the property. Rebecca examined the data, nodded. This is good, but we need more. Diane's accusing you of showing up at her house around 9 p.m. Your GPS proves you weren't there, but a judge might question phone data accuracy. What else do I need? Witnesses. Security footage, anything that corroborates your location. She paused. Does your property have cameras? No, I couldn't afford them. Rebecca drummed her fingers on the desk. Then we go on offense. We subpoena Diane's phone records. If she's lying about this, there might be evidence. The subpoena took 48 hours. When Diane's phone records came back, Rebecca called me immediately. Her voice was sharp with triumph. Michael, Diane texted a friend the same night she claims you harassed her. Quote, I'm going to claim harassment and get a restraining order. It'll force him to stay away while I figure out my next move. End quote. I felt my heart slam against my ribs. She planned this. She fabricated the whole thing. Yes, and that's not all. I pulled your audio recording from the confrontation at your property. Diane was the aggressor. She made threats. She screamed. You stayed calm. The recording proves you're not a threat. She is. We submitted everything to the prosecutor. The GPS data, the text messages, the audio recording, witness statements from neighbors who confirmed I was home that night. The prosecutor reviewed it all, then called Rebecca. "We're dropping the charges against your client, and we're opening an investigation into Miss Richardson for filing a false police report and attempted witness intimidation." Rebecca relayed the news. I sat down hard, relief flooding through me, but there was more. "Michael, the prosecutor is also considering charges for her role in the environmental violations, the forged permits, the fraud." Diane's legal situation just went from bad to catastrophic. Over the next week, everything unraveled for Diane. The state EPA finalized their investigation, massive fines for environmental damage. The county filed charges for permit fraud and forgery. Her real estate license was suspended pending review. Her reputation, the thing she'd valued above everything, was destroyed. I received a formal apology from the sheriff's department, an acknowledgement that the harassment charges were false, that I'd been the victim of malicious prosecution, but the vindication felt hollow. I didn't want revenge. I never wanted to destroy Diane, I just wanted my property back, my peace, my life. Still, watching her face real consequences for years of corruption, that felt like justice. Rebecca filed a civil suit for my legal expenses. $45,000. Diane's insurance would cover most of it, but she'd still be personally liable for a portion. "She's facing probation, community service, and financial ruin," Rebecca said. "Her attorneys are negotiating a plea deal to avoid jail time." I stared out my cabin window at the lake. The water sparkled in afternoon sunlight, birds circled overhead, the ecosystem was recovering, and so was I. Diane had tried to bury me, lied, cheated, weaponized the legal system against me, and every single time the truth had won because I'd documented everything, stayed calm, fought with facts instead of rage. That's how you beat corruption. Not with violence, not with chaos. With patience, evidence, and an unshakable belief that justice still means something. 6 months later, the lake was alive again, fish jumping at dusk, otters playing along the shore, herons wading through the shallows. Dr. Graves certified the water quality as fully recovered. The ecosystem had healed faster than anyone expected. The HOA transformed too. Margaret Thompson became permanent president. She implemented sweeping reforms, transparent budgets, democratic voting, strict adherence to county regulations. The toxic culture Diane created evaporated almost overnight. Residents started reaching out, invitations to neighborhood barbecues, apologies, conversations. Frank, the Vietnam vet, became a regular visitor. We'd sit on my porch, drink coffee, and watch the lake together. "You did something important," he said one morning, "not just for yourself, for all of us." Diane ran this place like a dictatorship. People were afraid to speak up. "You showed us it's possible to fight back and win." The HOA proposed a community project, a nature trail along the public easement bordering my property. Nothing intrusive, just a path where families could walk and enjoy nature. Respectful, legal, done right, I agreed. The HOA funded it completely, installed educational signage about lake ecology, created a small viewing platform for birdwatching. It became a gathering place. Kids learning about wildlife, families hiking together. My woodworking business started thriving. Custom furniture pieces, tables made from reclaimed wood, chairs with hand-carved details. Word spread, orders came in. I hired a part-time assistant, a local kid who needed work and wanted to learn the trade. I wasn't rich, but I was stable, building something real, something honest. One afternoon, I set up a wildlife camera near the shore, captured footage of a bald eagle fishing, a family of deer drinking at dawn, a fox den hidden in the pines. I posted the videos online just to share the beauty. They went viral, hundreds of thousands of views, comments pouring in. "This is what land conservation looks like. Thank you for protecting this place. The lake restoration hero." I didn't feel like a hero. I felt like someone who'd been forced to fight and somehow survived. But the attention brought something unexpected, messages from people across the country. Other victims of HOA corruption, people sharing their stories, asking for advice. I responded to everyone, shared what I'd learned, document everything, know the law, stay calm, fight with facts. Some of those people won their battles too, and they'd reach out to thank me, tell me my story gave them hope. That's when I realized this was bigger than my lake. It was about standing up to systems that protect the powerful and crush the vulnerable, about proving that ordinary people can still win when they refuse to back down. The quiet I'd been searching for finally arrived, but it wasn't empty anymore. It was full of friendships, purpose, and the knowledge that I'd honored my grandfather's legacy. I built a small memorial plaque and placed it near the water's edge, in memory of Grandpa Joe, who taught me that integrity means doing what's right even when it's hard. I stood there at sunset, watching light dance across the water. The lake was mine, but more than that, it was protected, preserved. Safe for the next generation. Diane had tried to take everything. Instead, she'd given me something I never expected: community, purpose. Proof that justice still exists if you're willing to fight for it, and that was worth every sleepless night. Every dollar spent, every moment of fear, because good people can still win. The courtroom was small, county courthouse, wood paneling, fluorescent lights. Diane Richardson sat at the defendant's table in a plain gray suit, no pink blazer. No jewelry, her blonde hair looked dull. Flat, she didn't look at me. The judge read the charges: filing false police reports, criminal trespassing conspiracy, fraud related to forged permit documents. Diane pleaded guilty to all of it, part of a negotiated plea deal to avoid jail time. Sentencing: 18 months probation, 200 hours community service, $45,000 restitution to me for legal fees. Her real estate license suspended for 3 years, a permanent criminal record. The judge asked if I wanted to make a statement. I stood, looked at Diane, she still wouldn't meet my eyes. I didn't want this, I said quietly. I never wanted revenge, I just wanted to protect land my grandfather left me, land that meant something, but you turned it into a war because you couldn't accept being wrong. You hurt people, destroyed reputations, broke laws. And you did it all because you believed power made you untouchable. I paused. I hope you learned something from this, that nobody is above the law, that integrity matters more than winning. That when you build your life on lies, it eventually collapses. Diane's shoulders shook. She was crying, silent tears, no dramatics, just the quiet breakdown of someone who'd lost everything. I sat down, the judge dismissed court. Diane left through a side door. I never saw her again. 2 weeks later, I heard she'd moved out of state, starting over somewhere anonymous. A cautionary tale whispered among HOA boards across the county. Life returned to normal. Better than normal, the lake sparkled every morning. I started offering free woodworking classes to local kids, teaching them craftsmanship, respect for materials, the satisfaction of building something with your own hands. The community embraced me not as a troublemaker, as someone who'd fought for what mattered and won the right way, legally, ethically, completely. I received letters from across the country, other HOA victims who found hope in my story. People who'd been bullied, intimidated, crushed by systems designed to protect the powerful. Some of them fought back, and won, and wrote to tell me my story gave them courage. That's when I understood. This was never just about a lake. It was about proving that ordinary people still have power when they refuse to surrender. That corruption can be defeated through patience, documentation, and an unwavering commitment to truth. I rebuilt my life exactly the way I wanted. Quiet mornings with coffee on the porch, afternoons in the workshop building furniture, evenings watching wildlife return to a lake that almost died. My grandfather would have been proud, not because I won. Because I fought for something bigger than myself, because I protected what he loved, because I proved that integrity still matters. The docks are gone, the water is clean, the ecosystem thrives. And every time I watch the sun set over that lake, I remember the battle it took to get here. Diane thought she could take everything. Instead, she gave me proof that justice still exists, that good people can still win. That standing your ground matters. This story isn't just mine anymore. It belongs to everyone who's ever been told they're too small to fight back, too weak to win, too insignificant to matter. You're not. And if you need proof, just look at what one person with a property deed and determination can do. If this story inspired you, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me your story. Have you ever had to fight corruption? Stand up to someone in power. I want to hear how you fought back. Your story matters. Share it below.